Okay, good morning everyone. Sorry, there was a bit of technical glitch, so couldn't connect earlier. So I hope all of you are safe. And let's start talking about. We talked about air pollution the last time, so let's talk about the noise pollution this time. Right. So, what is sound? Sound is basically everything that we hear, and it is anything that is capable of vibration and sending out single or multiple frequencies. That is what can produce a sound. So this is basically sound. So anything that we hear is sound and capable of vibration. So anything that can vibrate and produce single or multiple frequencies is called a sound. So currently, if you see, I am sitting in a server room and there is a vibration at the back end which is of the server, and there is a sound which is coming up. So that's basically a sound. Okay. But what is noise? Noise is unwanted sound, which is just to be unpleasant, loud, or disruptive to hearing. Right. For example, right now sitting in this room, right, even though the server noise is not loud or disruptive to my hearing at this point in time, but it is still unwanted. So in this room, preferably when I want to talk to you all, I would want it to be a bit much more quieter room. But the moment these sort of sounds which come, then it becomes a noise, right? And another way of defining noise is unbearable volume or voice or sound that is not suitable for human ear. That is mostly in terms of the high volume of sound, or somebody shouting near your ear, or somebody shouting on a microphone, and things like that, which is not suitable for human ear. There can be other sounds also, and which is considered as noise. So basically, what is noise pollution? Noise pollution is sound that is unwanted or disrupts one's quality of life, which is called as noise. When there is a lot of noise in the environment, it is termed as noise pollution. So, noise pollution in a simple way can be defined as something, a sound that disrupts one's quality of life. Right? So, if there is a continuous noise coming from somewhere, even though it is of smaller decibel levels, it will still be disturbing or disrupting one's quality of life. So, when there is a lot of those noise, it's called as noise pollution. And sound becomes undesirable when it disturbs the normal activities such as working, sleeping, and during conversations. For work, when you're working, so right now I'm working and I'm talking with you all, the sound or the hum of this server which is around here is actually disturbing the normal activity. It's sleeping. So if there is a continuous noise which disturbs your sleep, or during conversations, if you're talking and then something else keeps interrupting the conversation, then it is undesirable, and which can disturb the normal activity. It is an underrated environmental problem because of the fact that we can't see it, we can't smell it, or we can't taste it. So in a way, air pollution, basically many times you can see it and you can even smell it, but noise pollution is something which is very much underrated because you can't see it, we can't smell it, or even taste it. So it's basically something that many of us is more subjective and it's underrated. WHO states that noise must be recognized as a major threat to human well-being, and in fact this happened in the early 2000s when WHO said that we all have to figure out in terms of how we can reduce the noise pollution across the world, because that is actually becoming a major threat to human well-being. Now I'll talk to you in terms of how and why it is becoming a major threat. The sources. Now coming to the sources of noise pollution, what are the sources? So there are industrial sources, there are commercial sources, there are social sources, there are cultural sources, there is transportation and household. I will discuss probably household and a bit of transportation later, but let's talk about industrial noise pollution. So what is industrial noise pollution? I'm sure many of you would have come across a lot of these industries, or if you go into some of the industrial areas, there's a lot of this noise produced by industries, especially manufacturing industries. And that's why if you see, most of the industrial zones are kept away from the residential zones. but due to growing cities and things like that, we are actually engulfing, or we are actually encroaching into the industrial zones and having residential zones around the industrial zones, which is actually causing a lot of noise pollution. Industrial noise pollution can be caused because of the machines, because of the people, hustle bustle that happens. A lot of traffic comes to that place because people are to be transported, the goods have to be transported from there, and many of these things. And one of the other industrial noise pollution, I'm sure when most of you were in the MIMS campus, you would have heard this once in a while sporadic big noise which comes up, which even sort of vibrates the whole floor and the place where we are. This is because of the quarry work, wherein they are putting up dynamites and blowing up rocks, and then they are continuously sort of doing quarry work, which also causes a lot of noise pollution. Now, what is commercial noise pollution? Now, commercial noise pollution is basically noise pollution caused because of commercial activities. There's a subtle difference between industrial and commercial. So commercial noise pollution basically is, if you look at some of the commercial activities, for example, you would see that when you enter into malls, many of the malls, there are some small in the ground floor of many of the malls, you will see that there is a show going on, right? There is a marketing show going on within the mall, which creates noise, and there is music running, and there is hustle bustle of people. So this commercial, especially in the mall, once you go in, you'll suddenly feel the wave of noise that is generated, multiple different noises that are generated. So that's basically commercial noise, or the commercial noise in terms of people advertising about their products on the roads through mics, or there's a continuous TV running, screen running with an advertisement continuously happening. I have observed this a lot probably in the airports and some of the railways and bus stations, where there's a continuous scroll of certain product which is happening on the TV screens, and which is actually loud apart from the other noise around. Now, what is social noise pollution? Social noise pollution is probably when there's a lot of the social gathering, right? Many of these social gatherings happen especially related to festivals, or related to events like marriages, or events like death. There is a lot of this noise which comes in, where people put up loudspeakers, or people start blowing trumpets or beating drums, social part of it, which is actually in terms of also getting into the cultural dynamics part of it. Social cultural is a bit the difference between them is blurred, but many a times it's basically culturally we have a lot of these religious festivals where there is a lot of noise. For example, throughout the there are a lot of these religious institutions which keep up big mics and keep saying that. We see that in church, we see that in mosque, we see that during Ganesh festival. We also see a lot of noise coming up during Diwali. We also see a lot of noise coming up during New Year. We also see a lot of noise coming up during somebody who wins a political election or something like that, right? So social cultural, there are a lot of these cultural things which are happening. So that's where some of the noise comes through, and this causes noise pollution. Transportation, I don't have to specify and tell you, but I'm sure all of you would understand. There's a lot of noise pollution because of flights, airplanes that are going commercial, and commercial airplanes, and cargos and stuff like that. Apart from that, there's once in a while there are drills of the army which runs a lot of these fighter planes or helicopters, which causes noise. At the same time, there's a lot of noise on the roads, especially in heavy traffic roads, because of honking, because of vehicles, because of various movement of people, compounded with a lot of other things like mics and songs, and a lot of things that happen because of transportation. And then household, there are a lot of this household noise pollution. I'll discuss about that in a little bit. So sources. So transportation systems are the main source of noise pollution in urban areas. This is something that I'm sure all of you agree to it. There's a lot of difference when you actually live in a city, in a very thickly populated and very high high traffic related areas. But when you come down to place like MIMS, you see that the noise levels completely come down, because you don't have so much of traffic, you don't have so much of honking, you don't have so much of vehicles moving around, right? Things like that. Then construction of buildings, which also causes a lot of noise, right? Because I'm sure there are these big vehicles, bulldozers, cranes, right? The machines that are coming in, putting up, plus there is hitting of the rods, there is clinking noise, there's a lot of noise which comes when you're constructing various buildings. Same thing with the highways, road rollers and the machines which actually work there, and people working there. So there's a lot of highways when you construct. There's also a lot of issues in construction, but at the same time, highways also have a lot of flow of traffic, which also adds to the noise pollution. Streets, there are a lot of noise in the streets. This is something that, if you actually go to some of the old city areas, and which is like very bustling with people, and people, there are hawkers selling on the footpath, there are people in the shops who are shouting and telling you to come to their shop. There's a lot of people who are walking around. There is a mic going on. There's a lot of noise that happens. Usage of air compressors, this probably you will see it mostly in big buildings or commercial establishments, where they use a lot of these air compressors for air cooling and air conditioning for that particular building. Bulldozers, this is something that I was mentioning. There are a lot of road widening, there are a lot of bulldozers which are being used, and there's a lot of noise because of that. Loaders, again, loaders are these are the equipment which are used to load stuff from one place to another place, or one place to into the trucks and things like that. Dump trucks, these are trucks which carry a lot of dump and things like that. And pavement breakers, these are something like speed breakers, where you see that the moment there is a speed breaker and there is a lot of this congestion of traffic around the speed breaker, there is surely going to be a lot of noise around that, right? So that's because the vehicles move through that, some vehicles jump through that, some vehicles put screeching brakes, and then somebody is so impatient that he keeps honking that you're not going forward. So a lot of things happen in terms of speed breakers. Industrial noise also adds to the already unfavorable state of noise pollution. This I have already told you in terms of industrial noise, which adds up. Loudspeakers, which I'm sure all of you know how the situation in Hyderabad becomes, especially in many of the festivals, and there's a lot of loudspeakers which play a role in noise pollution. Plumbing, because there's a lot of this clinking of the metal, somebody is hitting the metal, somebody is doing a lot of bending and tinkering the plumbing tools and plumbing materials. So plumbing also causes. Boilers, these are huge boilers. If you go somewhere close to industries like this dairy or things like that, you will hear that there's a lot of this boiler noise. Generators, that's another huge cause of noise pollution, especially industries which need 24/7 power. If there is power gone, there's an auto generator which kicks in, which produces a lot of noise. Apart from that, it also produces a lot of air pollution. That's a different story, but this also generates a lot of noise. Air conditioners is something that all of us discounted, but they cause a lot of noise pollution. Fans, again, within the house, I'm sure you switch off the fan and listen to your TV, you will probably put the volume at around 8, 9 or 10, but the moment you put on fan with almost like 5-speed fan and then sit in front of it, you'll have to increase the volume because you're not able to hear the TV, right? So there's a multiplication of the noise pollution. So one is the fan is causing the noise. Apart from that, you are increasing the sound of the TV, which increases that. Vacuum cleaners is not much used in India, but they are now slowly coming into the market and into the picture. That also causes a lot of noise in terms of existing noise pollution. Household sources of noise pollution. This is something which is very interesting because we don't consider them as noise pollution, but there is this mixers and grinders which cause a lot of noise, right? And then there's pressure cookers also which cause of noise. Vacuum cleaners, as I discussed. Washing machines and dryers. We don't have a lot of dryers right now, in India, but washing machines do cause a lot of noise. Air conditioners which do that, straighteners and curlers which are again some of these things which people use for their hair and stuff like that, which also causes noise. Coolers, air coolers, right? This is something that most of us tend to use in the summer times, and if you see, most of our medical college has a lot of this air coolers put up across the departments, right? That causes a lot of noise, so you have to speak louder to hear somebody, so that way you are compounding the noise pollution. You are shouting, and also at the same time that is creating the noise. Loudspeakers, as I discussed, and one of the other things is neighbors barking dog, right? So this is another thing that you can consider as a household source of noise pollution, because sometimes there are some of these dogs in some of the neighbors which continuously keep barking, whatever reason. It might be for good reason, thieves should not come to your house, or there is a snake, or there is something else going around, so the dogs bark, but they also cause noise pollution. Now coming to the health effects, so there are like direct links between noise and health, and also noise pollution adversely affects the lives of millions of people. That's why it is said, WHO says that this is an underrated sort of issue of health among humans in this world, right? So there is direct, and also in terms of it affects a lot of lives of people. Noise pollution can damage physiological and psychological health. Some of the examples here, I will again tell you some more in terms of high blood pressure, because if you are in a high noise environment, physiologically you develop high blood pressure, and psychologically you also develop a sort of irritable temper or irritable mood, which in turn contributes to your high blood pressure, right? Stress, right? There are a lot of the stress which is because of the noise. So stress related illnesses, sleep disruptions because you are not able to sleep because of the noise. And then when you are continuously and consistently exposed to these noises, you also develop hearing loss. So most of us probably have some level of hearing loss because of we being exposed continuously to various noises, right? And there is a productivity loss, right? Because when you cannot concentrate, when you cannot then you will not be able to produce better, right? So productivity loss, especially in terms of noise pollution. You might say that many of you say, listen to music and study, or listen to music and write, but when you keep your earphones, you're not noise polluting. But if you ramp up your music systems and put the music system in high volume, and then you try to study, you're basically trying to be productive in a non-productive environment, one. At the same time, you're also causing a lot of noise pollution which impacts the other people in the neighborhood. There are instances where noise pollution actually can cause memory loss and dementia, severe depression, and also panic attacks. So these are some of the broad health effects. But I list down some of the key health effects, like increase in blood pressure, increased stress, fatigue because you're not able to sleep properly because of sleep disruption and things like that. Stomach ulcers because of stress again. Vertigo, sorry the spelling is wrong. Vertigo is basically many times when you have noise pollution, it probably gives you vertigo, and if it is in higher, if the noise is in higher nature, it can impact your cochlea, which can cause vertigo. Headaches, higher the noise, you probably end up getting headaches. Sleep disturbance for sure, annoyance or stress again, right? Speech problems, because many times there is an issue in terms of your calmness, and there is a stress which also can induce speech problems. Learning impairment, especially in terms of dysgraphia, because if there is a continuous noise or a consistent noise, you're not able to concentrate, and there is a learning impairment. Aggression, because you are stressed, really irritated, there is aggression. There is anxiety, and there is also withdrawal, right? So withdraw from many of the activities and stuff like that. And it also happens in a similar way that if you are exposed continuously to a lot of this noise, and suddenly that continuous noise is pulled off, you end up having withdrawal symptoms, right? For example, I remember this Telugu movie where I think Brahmanandam is a ticket collector in the train and TC in the train, and after he retires he is not able to sleep because he doesn't have that noise feel and also that vibration going in the train. So basically he records in a tape recorder, he keeps the noise of the train going so that he can sleep. So there is many times there's a withdrawal, that if you are taken out from that environment that you have exposed for a longer time with a lot of noise, you actually get a withdrawal, you are not able to perform better without that noise. So these are some of the things that I just thought I would let you know in terms of the sound, intensity and the perception. For example, if you stand by the side of a jet plane around 30 meters distance and the jet plane moves off, or it sort of takes off, so the intensity is almost like 140 decibels. The perception is there is an extreme pain because of that much of sound, right? Threshold of pain basically is 125 decibels, and you see that jet plane at 30 meters is 140, right, decibels. Pneumatic drill, these are those drills, that big drills that they use, right? That's the perception is you have a very loud noise. Many of them actually use pneumatic drills to drill the bore well, or some of those things are done by pneumatic drills. Siren, many of these sirens, especially in terms of ambulance, police, at 30-meter distance produces almost 100 decibels of sound, which is in between very loud to loud. Loud car horn is a loud perception, which is 90 decibels. Door slamming, this is something that most of us don't realize, but slamming a door actually produces a loud noise. It's around 80 decibels. Busy street traffic, it is around 70 decibels, and it is noisy, right? The perception is noisy. Then you have normal conversation, when two people are sitting and talking. It's not it's moderately, I would say moderate noise, right? Quiet radio room, which is very quiet, like 40 decibels. A quiet room, quiet radio is like quiet, whereas a quiet room is like 20 decibels is very quiet. A rustle of leaves, and then threshold of hearing is 0 decibels. So if you pay attention, you can even hear rustle of leaves when you actually sit in a very calm and quiet place, especially in nature. You can hear the rustle of leaves. That's like 10 decibels, right? So threshold of hearing is 0 decibels. So anything about 0 decibels we can hear, and if we are not hearing, that means that there is a problem with us in terms of our hearing ability, right? So there are certain norms in terms of limits of decibels that can be produced, especially as per Central Pollution Control Board of India. They have categorized based on area or zone. Industrial area, daytime it should be 75 decibels and nighttime it should be 70. Commercial area 65 in the daytime and 55 in the night. Residential area 55 and 45, and silent zones are 50 and 40. Now, what are the silent zones? Silent zones are hospitals and schools and educational institutions. The reason that they have put this limit is that we don't want disability or learning disability or learning impairment, especially in educational institutions. We need to have some good silent zones, and you especially in hospitals you need to concentrate, so you don't need any of these noise pollutants which are actually causing issues for you. So silent zones are 50 and 40. If you see, the traffic noise is almost close to 80 decibels, right? So silent zones is around 50. That's why they put in silent zones all the places that no honking please, right? You don't want anybody to honk. Solutions. Now, what are solutions? Some of the solutions are like planting bushes and trees in and around the sound generating sources is an effective solution for noise pollution. Do you know why this is effective? This is effective for two different things. One is that when sound travels and it travels through bushes and trees, there is a lot of this reduction of sound because the leaves and the branches, they actually transmit the sound, but they absorb the sound a bit and then transmit more. So that way, having bushes and trees around sound generating sources is an effective solution for noise pollution. But at the same time, if you look at it the other way around, especially in terms of industrial and commercial areas, if you have a lot of these bushes and trees, it also helps us in terms of air pollution. So, it can absorb a lot of bad air, or especially carbon dioxide, and give out good oxygen outside, right? Regular servicing and tuning of automobiles. This can effectively reduce the noise pollution. This is something that it has to be thought about very critically, because many of the trucks or the buses and things like that, not just in terms of noise but also in terms of air pollution, they produce a lot of smoke because they are not regularly serviced or tuned. The other issue that especially comes for the noise pollution is with the current trend of having some of these bikes with their silencers being cut, making different types of noise and sound, and then that also causes a lot of noise, because I'm sure all of us would hear whenever there is a two-wheeler which is going with a silencer cut or made into something which can produce a different unique noise. People think that it's basically a uniqueness that they're creating in their vehicle, but actually they're causing a lot of noise pollution, and this is actually a traffic violence and a violation, and many of the people who had this sort of alteration of the silencers have been booked for traffic violation. Buildings can be designed with suitable noise absorbing material for the wall, windows and ceiling. This is something that is one very good way of reducing the noise. We do now have a lot of these commercial spaces which are now being designed and built in such a way that they absorb noise and they don't transmit noise inside. So if you go to many of these high-rise buildings, especially commercial buildings and companies, they have made it in such a way that once you get inside, there's a lot of silence. There's very less noise compared to outside. There's a lot of noise outside because of traffic, but the moment you get inside the building, there's a lot of silence inside, right? So most of the times this is because of the materials in the walls that is used, or windows which are made airtight, and also in terms of ceilings which have a false ceiling and also try to make it airtight so that you don't get noise coming inside. Workers should be provided with equipment such as earplugs and earmuffs for hearing protection. This we still have to see, because some of the companies or some of the industries are doing this, but we still have to reach to a better level, because if you see, most of the workers working in construction sites don't have these earplugs or earmuffs. Probably the quarry workers, especially who use dynamites, probably are using earplugs, but the others are not using, right? So there's a lot of this equipment like earplugs and earmuffs which can be used for protection. Similar to automobiles, lubrication of the machinery and servicing should be done to minimize the noise generation. So the industries, especially manufacturing industries and other industries where there are a lot of machines that are used, a consistent lubrication and periodic servicing is very important to ensure that it minimizes the noise that is generated. Soundproof doors and windows can be installed to block unwanted noise from outside. Now this is something that we are seeing nowadays, especially with air conditioning systems being installed within homes. We are also getting some of these soundproof doors and windows so that we don't have noise inside the house. So that's something that it is coming now slowly into the house, but this is being used extensively in commercial establishments. There has to be regulations which have to be imposed to restrict the use of loudspeakers in crowded areas and public places. So there has been some sort of movement on this, especially in terms of restricting the usage of loudspeakers during various festival seasons, and also during many of these campaigns or things like that. But this still have to be imposed. The regulation of these norms have to be implemented better still. So there is a lot of scope for improvement on this. Factories and industries should be located far off from the residential areas. Now this has always been one of the things that the government and the regulatory authorities are always sort of trying to see and make sure that factories and industries are located far off from the residential areas. But due to rapid sort of urbanization, we are seeing that many of these factories which were actually located far off from the residential areas are now getting into the residential areas itself, because probably we are going and living near the factories and industries which were actually built up far off from the urban areas. Community development or urban management should be done with long-term planning along with an aim to reduce noise pollution. So there has been a lot of this focus on town planning and urban management or national urban mission, which actually talks about a lot of this a lot of these issues in terms of long-term planning with an aim to reduce the noise pollution. There is a lot of this community related interventions and also development of the community to move towards reducing the noise pollution. Social awareness programs should be undertaken to educate the public about the causes and effects of noise pollution. Now this is something which is very lacking in the country, because people think that more noise you generate, the more better you are, which is actually not true. And second thing is, if you generate more noise, you're basically causing problem to yourselves and also problem to the others in the surroundings. So there has to be a lot of the social awareness which has to come into the picture, so that public is educated about this, especially about the effects of the noise pollution, because many of them don't think that noise pollution causes anything serious, right? They said, oh, it's okay, it's just some songs in the loudspeaker, so it's fine. But they don't realize that it's actually hampering a lot of it is causing a lot of health effects, especially in terms of sleeplessness, anxiety, irritability, aggression. A lot of things come up to the picture. So that this is something that we have to work very focused on, especially in terms of social awareness and also increasing awareness of the community. So this is all that I have, especially in terms of noise pollution. So one of the things that I want you to just make sure that you remember is that these are some of the standards where of the Central Pollution Control Board of India regarding the limits of decibels that are allowed in some of these areas: industrial area, commercial area, residential area, and silent zones. Another thing that I also would like to sort of emphasize is that just make sure that you always think about the threshold of hearing as 0 decibels, and anything that moves up beyond 125 is a threshold for pain, right? So anything which is more than 125 decibels is actually causing pain. And these are the key effects. Remember that these are some of the key effects, so that when there is a noise pollution somewhere in your surroundings, you can at least tell to the people that, see, you continue to do this, this is going to impact not just you but others in terms of stress, blood pressure, disturbances, speech problems, aggression, anxiety, and stuff like that. So these are some of the important things that I thought I'll just let you know, especially in terms of noise pollution. Right? So with this, I would sort of conclude the session for today. Thank you for the patient listening, and stay safe, stay home, and stay safe. Right? Thank you.